Hello and welcome to The Knowing Show. I'm your host, Christine Marie. And tonight I wanted to just talk to you while I was getting ready for bed because I felt really compelled. I was working on something tonight and I learned a little lesson that I wanted to share with you all tonight before heading to bed. I wasn't doing the Knowing Show. I was inviting a couple of folks to the Knowing Retreat. I've been hosting a retreat for the last, year and a half. I've hosted 4 different ones. One in Vegas, one in DC, one in Austin, one in New York. And each one has had a different theme, more or less. And they've been incredible. They've been so amazingly impactful, both for me and for the attendees. You know, the things I'm hearing back from folks is just, it's so encouraging. It reminds me why I do what I do. And, I've got a branding and marketing business and I'm starting a community for folks in the trades. And, at the end of the day, what do I feel called to? I really do feel called to bringing almost like a cry to people of it's time to wake up, and helping people know how to do that. Because there's so many people saying so many good and important things online today, but there's also a lot of noise. And so with the noise, there's almost competition for who do you listen to. There's a lot of good people to listen to. But I think the number one thing, if I was to say anything, is that I really want people to understand that they are what they need. It's time that we stop outsourcing our help, and it's time that we stop outsourcing our value and stop outsourcing our love and our belonging and connection even. I actually think that there's something really, really important about community with someone else. One of the most impactful stories for me was when I had this realization. The biblical story opens with God and the very first person created. They're living in perfect unity. Nothing's wrong in the world. There's all these animals. There's all this creation and nature, and it just is beautiful. But the person doesn't have a spouse, and the person doesn't have friends. And God says, it's not good for man to be alone, even though man is with God. And that, to me, I realized that years ago, and that just has always made a big impact on me. Wow. It could be, the world could be perfect and it's still not perfect because we're supposed to be in community. But if we're trying to be in community, so if we're trying to be in community, but we haven't gotten alignment with ourselves and connections with ourselves or with God, there's going to be disconnect and disunity with the people around us. I've seen for myself, my platonic, business, romantic relationships, every single one, I can see a remarkable difference when I engage with them, when I'm coming from a place of confidence and alignment, and I know who I am, and I'm walking in my calling, and I'm walking as I was created to be, versus I'm looking to them to meet my needs. And I'm not feeling like I'm enough, so I'm looking to them to tell me that I'm enough. Man, that's a lot of pressure for anyone to carry. And so with that, these knowing retreats, I've called them the boot camp of the soul. And I was working on one for January and creating an invitation, and I was preparing it to send out to folks. And I had this moment. Y'all, I hate sales. I just do. and I've actually sat with it for a couple of times at various points throughout the year. Why do I hate sales so much? And, I've realized different things. But tonight, I was about to ask ChatGPT to help me create, just a little message to them, effectively saying, you don't have to come. I'm sorry, I'm sending you this. Totally fine if you don't want to. And then, I asked myself, I was like, if I was to really think about them, not think about me, how would I position this? And then I wrote it not with ChatGPT, and I was just I'm so excited to invite you because I know that this is something that's so important to me. It's something that's so impactful. You know, I've now done 4 of these events. I've also done virtual workshops with over 100 people, and I see the impact, and it's so exciting, and I'm so thrilled to invite you. And it was just so interesting. This is what I wanted to share with you. Once I moved myself, like my ego, out of the driver's seat, and I actually put, talk about being connected and walking in your power. Once I stepped into the impact that I know that this will make, and I also put on the hat of service. So it's 2 things. It's not just, strip away your ego and walk in your power, but it's, okay, well, who am I serving? We have to have clear awareness of who we're serving and the transformation that's going to happen there. Otherwise, ego is going to be crouching there. And otherwise, we have all this confidence. For what purpose? Well, it's for the good of others. It's for the good of those we're serving. And so it was so helpful for me tonight. Immediately, I switched from fear to love. I felt afraid to send this message out to people, like I was afraid because my ego was in the driver's seat. I was afraid of what they'd think. And I also realized that afraid of what I would think is actually predicated in my own insecurity in the past of when people try to sell me, I feel bad for saying no. That's my issue. They hopefully don't have that issue. And so we can't sell people or speak to people based on our own insecurity. But if we're not aware of what those insecurities are, we're going to. We can't help it. That's what we know. And so the more work, this is another reason why we need to go inward and do the work for ourselves, is because otherwise we'll be engaging with the world from a place of fear, our own fear, not theirs. We'll be assuming, we'll be projecting our fear on them. And then everybody wonders why they feel so misjudged. Well, it's because we're looking at the world through kind of a selfish lens. We're looking at the world through how we see it, not putting ourselves in their shoes. We actually cannot have empathy because ego is in the way. Ego rooted in fear. So it's really not good for anybody. Who wants to abide by their ego, and who wants to live trapped in fear? So the first step is to move from fear to love. But love has to have a target. We have love for ourselves. Yes, we have love for God. Yes. But there has to be oh my gosh, I just had this thought of the love from God comes in, it permeates our soul, but it has to have an output. It has to have a release. And there's a Greek word, lambano, which means to receive. And I really actually have struggled with receiving for a while in my life. But last year I stumbled upon this Greek word. And what it means is that it's very active. It's it's almost like a input-output type of flow. Think of it when a soldier receives a command. They're not just saying, okay, he receives the order and then he does nothing. No, it's actually expected that he goes and takes action. So lambano, receiving, is actually a very action-oriented word. And so if we're ever going to receive love from God, it comes in and then it flows out. We have to have a target. We have to have an output for our love. Otherwise, it won't go anywhere, and then is it even love to begin with? And I think that's actually, this is so interesting. I wonder if that's actually where we really can convolute fear and love, is because we don't have a real target. Man, I'm going to love you. Man, I'm going to help you. Man, I'm going to transform your life. Man, I'm going to just give you what I have. You know what I mean? We can't transform someone's life without their own acquiescence, right? Without their own willingness. But what we can do is give everything that we've got. But if we're rooted in fear, we're not able to really give from a place that's free. We can't give from a place that's effectively letting go of what the outcome is. If we're tied to an outcome rather than just an output, I want to output my love. I want to output an outcome rather than just an output. I want to output my love. I want to output everything I've learned. I want to output this transformation that I've experienced and share it with the world. And instead of we're tied to an outcome, you better transform, you better change, you better XYZ, you better meet my needs. Man, that's fear. That's not love. Love is based on outcome or output. Love is based on output. Fear is based on outcome. So I wanted to share that with you all tonight as I'm getting ready for bed. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.